Joining me now, the Premier of Alberta, Jason Kenney. Good to see you in town.
Good to be here.
Okay, so you watched the first unofficial Conservative leadership debate, and now they're coming to your province, Edmonton, on Wednesday for that. What struck me was how nasty it was. Maybe the nastiest leadership debate. You've been in a bunch of these. Was that a robust policy debate, or does that signal a deeper issue in the Conservative movement in general, that is it a nastiness or is it a kind of existential crisis there?
Well, I'm not sure. It certainly was feisty. And my advice to all of the candidates would be to remember, you've got to unite, whoever wins has got to unite the party at the end of it, and try and be respectful of your, it's okay, I think, to draw policy contrasts and some contrasts on record. But I think that my advice would do that knowing that you've got to reunite the party at the end of this, and that's critical.
Like calling someone a liar, calling someone corrupt, calling someone, and part of it was you don't even belong in the party, you're a liberal, you're not. I just wonder, it seems to be litmus test issues, like you're either a Conservative or not. Is that, I mean, you were a federal politician for a long time. What does it tell you about the state of that party that it's this level of nasty?
Well, it's a big tent movement, and there's going to be some disagreement. That's the nature of an election, of a leadership election. There's going to be some conflict for sure. But again, you've got to keep that big tent, and that means people with different perspectives and different backgrounds. So I would, I would just encourage all of the candidates to be mindful of that.
One issue that came up, and again, I know you have to be careful on the lines. Leslyn Lewis, who of course is the standard bearer for social conservatives, seemed emboldened by what was going on in the United States with the Roe v. Wade situation. That has surprisingly suddenly abortion is back on the agenda in elected politics here. Has the role of social conservatives in the conservative movement, you talked about the Big Tent, is it changing right now?
I don't think significantly. As Jean Charest said in the debate, social conservatives are part of the broader coalition, people who believe in the importance of family, parental authority, and education, things like that. And so that's not new. And every successful conservative leader has tried to ensure that everybody has a chance. Everybody gets their say, but they don't always get their way. That's how you keep a coalition together.
I just got to ask you on the provincial level, because people are asking, should the federal government put legislation on it? They've used the Canada Health Act and they've used the Charter, as you know, on that. Is access to abortion threatened in your mind, and is this an important political debate to have?
The debate is over a potential decision in a court in a foreign country. I really don't see how that connects to Canadian policy, and in any event, this is a question that is under federal jurisdiction. So, I think that we can all have opinions about what's going on in U.S. law and politics, but it's a debate over. I'm not asked these questions when a European or an Asian country changes their policy.
And that's a fair point. But it's here anyway. It's come here. One of the issues in your province is access to abortion, that per capita, it's very low access in your province. Are you committed to increasing access to abortion or having some standardized access?
We have not changed policy since the NDP, and there's no intention to change policy.
Let's go to your situation, because you're probably a little more focused on your political future than on theirs right now, because you're facing a leadership review on May 18th. At one point, you were recorded by the CBC as saying you're here to make sure that the lunatics don't take over the asylum. Who are the lunatics?
Well, I was referring very specifically to in the last election, I screened out a bunch of people who were trying to run for my party who had records of extremism, of racism, of hatred. And I made it very clear when I ran to be leader and helped to create the United Conservative Party in Alberta, that this was going to be a mainstream party that is not open to people from the fringe who are motivated by hatred. And some of those folks are trying to get revenge, quite frankly, organizing against me in this leadership review.
But we're talking about keeping a conservative movement together. I just want to twin these tensions,
Sure.
Because you've got the tension there. In the first leadership debate, one thing there was a gap. No one mentioned 39,000 plus Canadians who died. Nobody mentioned healthcare workers. It was like mandates were a litmus test. If you're for mandates, and you've experienced this, you get a backlash. Yet you're the premier, you had mandates. You're the premier, you wanted law and order against trucker protests. Doug Ford did, Francois Legault did. They're winning. I didn't. Did you see that view reflected on the federal stage?
Well,
or it seems to be, I'm just trying to figure out what the Conservative view is on all that.
Well, you have about 7 centre-right Conservative governments in this, provincial governments in Canada. And for us, COVID was not an abstraction. We are responsible for delivering healthcare to people, and none of us could tolerate a situation where the hospitals were overflowing. I was a couple of weeks away potentially from having to order pulling life support from people, transporting patients to Toronto and using backup morgue trucks. Like, there's no world in which I could find that morally acceptable. So
and you were criticized, you faced fierce and for many people legitimate criticism for being too slow, for not doing enough, for not doing, for the best summer ever, many people regard as a major and sometimes fatal mistake.
And I got passionate criticism from both sides. My point is, at the provincial government level, COVID was not an abstraction. It was a very real threat to the healthcare system for which provincial governments are responsible. I think to some extent at the federal level, it's easier to turn it into an abstraction because you're not responsible for running out of healthcare capacity.
Okay. Your party, you formed it in 2017 when the former leader of the Wild Rose, Brian Jean, is back. He wants to oust you, as you know. Does your party hold together? Because, Conservative parties have, you've been there since 87 when the Reform Party formed. It's been a series of, fractures and unities and fractures and unities. Where are you now on that?
Our members are having a vote on whether to have a leadership election. I'm confident that I'll be endorsed. Regardless, I'll respect the decision that they make, and we'll unite after that.
What do you need to stay? By the way, would you stay at 50+1, or this is like a Joe Clark? What do you need? 70? Do you need 80?
Well, as I've said, in a democracy, a majority is 50% plus one. Period. But Evan, if I were to step down and run in a leadership election, what is the threshold? 50% plus one. I'm not going to get fixated on a number. I believe I'll get a good endorsement from the members because they want to stay united, move forward into the future. And one thing Alberta Conservatives have learned is that if we're united, we can win. If we're divided, we always lose.
All right, Jason Kenney, I got to leave it there. I appreciate it.
Cheers.